This is FE Peer Review, the Flat Earth Peer Review channel. The date is July 15th, 2020. This is not a peer review video. It's a quick overview of how fast you'd have to pitch a baseball to send it into orbit. And who better to show us than MLB Chapman, pitcher extraordinaire.
That one hit 106. That would be a new record for the hardest pitch ever thrown. He set the mark last year just over 105.
If you want to learn how to throw a baseball into orbit, there are 3 steps. 1. Work out a lot. 2. Convince MLB Chapman to teach you how to pitch. And 3. Practice a lot. But seriously, this is what we're going to talk about. 1. Pitch the ball really, really fast. The question is, how fast? And 2, find a way to deal with air resistance. We'll take those separately. But first, a couple of disclaimers. I'm not a baseball pitcher or a rocket scientist, and after this video you won't have learned, from me anyway, everything you need to know about launching a rocket or throwing a baseball. Hopefully, if you're new to the subject, it will give you a grasp of the basic ideas, and you'll feel like pursuing them further with people who are smarter than me. What you are seeing here was basically what I saw in my first day of my first physics class. By the way, if you find this useful, I hope you'll hit that like button, subscribe, and share it with friends. So what just happened there? Notice those red lines get further and further apart? That's acceleration. That's that ball covering more distance in the same amount of time, the longer it drops. And that is the first ingredient into figuring out how to throw a baseball into orbit. Now we're going to take that baseball up to the roof of a tall building, and we're going to drop it off the roof of this tall building. And this is something you do not want to do because you can really badly hurt people down in the street below. So don't do this, but let's just do it for the sake of the story. You've taken your baseball up to the roof of a tall building, and you've dropped it. And what did you see? Just like in the other picture, you saw that that ball went faster and faster the farther it dropped. In the first second, it went down 4.9 meters. In the second second, 19.6. In the third second, 44.1. All the way down until after 6 seconds, it hit the ground at 176.5 meters below. Well, you had so much fun doing that, you decided to do it again from a different tall building. This one's the same height. But when you got up there, you noticed that the way it steps out, your ball was going to hit on the roof below instead of out to the ground. So instead of just dropping it, you threw it straight out from you. Not up, not down, but just straight ahead of you. And that ball took the same amount of time to fall to the ground. It took 6 seconds to fall to the ground again. But this time, instead of just going in a straight line right down to the ground, it went in a beautiful arc. If you had a chance to take 6 perfectly timed photographs 1 second apart, you'd have seen that your ball would have traveled forward the same distance in each second, but down more and more each second. The next day, you're hanging out with your best friend and you decided to take him up to the top of that skyscraper, and you've got a couple of baseballs to throw. And so you show him what you did the day before, and you throw your baseball out there, makes that nice, beautiful arc right down to the ground. And well, he's one of these kind of super competitive people that's always got to do everything better than everybody else. So he takes the other baseball, and he's going to show you how much farther he can throw it. And he throws it as hard as he can, and it goes twice as far as when you threw it. But it actually takes the same amount of time to hit the ground. Well, you decide you're going to show him, so you go off and you start working out, and then you go and get some coaching from MLB Chapman, and you practice a whole lot. And before you know it, you can pitch a ball at 105 miles an hour just like Chapman did, which, for my metric friends, is 46.9 meters per second. So you go up to that tall building and you throw another ball, 46.9 meters per second. It flies out there for 6 seconds, finally hitting the ground 281.4 meters away. That's a pitch to be proud of. Flat Earth friends, you may want to mute the next part. but you're going to miss out on the fun stuff. This is where it gets interesting. Forget that meters per second nonsense. You want to be able to pitch a ball really fast. So you practice hard, and before you know it, you're pitching a ball that clocks at 7.9 kilometers a second. There's never been a faster fastball in baseball history. So you go back up to that tower of yours that you like so much, you've got your baseball with you, and you wind up and you spin around and you do everything possible, and you throw that ball at 7.9 kilometers per second, and it's got 6 seconds before it hits the ground, and you really want to see how far it's going to go. And after 6 seconds, it doesn't hit the ground, because in the 6 seconds that ball was moving forward, the ground dropped down below from the curve of the earth. Yeah, there's the word, the curve of the earth. And in that 6 seconds, that ground dropped as far down as you were standing up on that tower. So there you go. After 6 seconds of that ball falling towards the ground, it's no closer to the ground than when you let go of it at the top of your tower. There's still another 6 seconds for it to keep on falling, and the ground's curved away even more. And it still falls another 6 seconds, and the ground keeps curving away under it. And it is going into orbit. Well, I know you've all been thinking to yourselves, arg, what about air resistance? He's not talking about air resistance. Arr! Well, we'll talk about air resistance because you're right. Life is rarely as simple as we'd like it to be. And air resistance is something we just have to deal with if we want to throw a baseball into orbit. When you were a kid, did you used to stick your hand out the car window while your folks were driving down the freeway? Play with the hand position so that your palms facing front, and there'd be a lot of wind pushing against your hand, and then you'd flatten your hand out and you could feel it like a wing on an airplane. I don't know if you did that, but I did that when I was a kid. Anyhow, that's air resistance. And down here at ground level, there's a lot of air and a lot of resistance. And the faster you go, the harder it resists. You're driving down the freeway at 60 miles an hour, and that was quite a lot of force on your hand. It could be hard to keep your hand out that window. So just imagine that baseball traveling at, what was it, 46 kilometers a second, or whatever the number was, 7.9 kilometers a second. There's a lot of wind hitting that ball, so that's going to be a problem. The moment we let go of that ball, we can't add any more force to it, and that wind's going to be hitting against it. So if we want to keep it orbiting, we have to have a little engine on it that somehow that keeps blasting it forward so that the wind resistance is counteracted. Alternatively, we could go really, really high up, because the higher up you go, the less air there is to resist. And if you go high enough up, there's really almost none. So basically, there's no air resistance when you get hundreds of kilometers up above the Earth. And so once you get going fast enough, there's really nothing to stop you from going forward. No more wind, no more air resistance. By the way, this is probably one of the reasons why dogs don't stick their heads out of spaceship windows. There's just not as much fun as doing it down here on Earth. So air resistance is the bugaboo. We've got to find a way past it. You could attach some kind of a jet engine or something to your baseball so that you can constantly be speeding it up again as the air resistance pushes back against it. That would keep it going. You'd still have to find a way to keep refueling your jet engine, but that could be managed. Alternatively, if you could get way high up above into the upper atmosphere where there's very little air resistance to be overcome, then you could throw it nice and fast, and there would be no air resistance to slow it down. I suppose you could take a ride in the ISS and let them toss your baseball out the car window. Bring your dog, why not? Anyhow, I've probably milked this gag long enough, so I'll let you all go home now. But keep practicing. Find yourself a good coach. Never stop learning. Have a great day. Bye-bye. Oh, wait, did you remember to hit those like and subscribe buttons? Please make sure to do that before you head out. Okay, now, take care. Bye-bye.